Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight, where we look at what's really going on in the world of the BRICS. Now today I want to talk about the Russian aviation sector and how it aims to be fully independent of outside suppliers and the manufacture of civilian aircraft. This itself is the ultimate import substitution, and harking back to the days when Antonov, Ilyushin, Tupolev and Sukhoi were well-known names in aviation, and Russia and the Soviet Union built and developed their own aircraft. So Russia is now focused on fully developing its aviation sector to be independent of the West, and the aviation fleet to be almost exclusively Russian-made over the next decade. Although the majority of civilian products from Russian leading manufacturers are currently in the experimental design phase, with the first serial deliveries not expected before 2025. Now that said, industry analysts are confident that the transition to domestic civilian aircraft is the only viable path for the development of the Russian air transport industry. In the wake of the global pandemic and then geopolitical events of spring 2002, when Russia became the target of unprecedented sanctions, domestic aviation emerged as one of the most significantly impacted sectors of the economy. The introduction of strict restrictions had a significant impact on the supply of aircraft and components. Now, the recovery of passenger traffic following the pandemic and the increased intensity of flights within the country made a big difference. Now, these developments made it clear that the civil aviation fleet would require an update in the near future. The same year, the Russian government presented a comprehensive program for the development of the aviation industry, which included plans to produce almost 1,000 Russian civil aircraft by 2030, with the first deliveries to start in 2023. Now, it was anticipated that the airlines would receive a wide range of aircraft, including the mainstream MS-21, the Tu-214, the IL-96, the SSJ Nu 1000, and the regional aircraft, the Laguna, and local aircraft Baikal and the Belarusian Osvy. Now, before I continue, I'd like to make an appeal. If you like and enjoy my videos, you can help me fund the channel and my website, SCOBRICSinsight.com, to further develop it. You can do this by making a small donation, which you can do by clicking on the thanks button at the bottom of the video screen. Everybody who does donate gets a personal thank you from me, and I'm thanking you all now just for watching. However, this spring the programme was updated, with the market launch dates for almost all the airlines being pushed back by several years. Now, the updated version of the document indicates a shift in the projected delivery schedules for several aircraft models. The MS-21 is now expected to start serial deliveries in late 2025. Now, this is approximately 2 years from the previously anticipated launch. Similarly, the SSJ Nu is now scheduled for delivery in 2026. That's 3 years later than the previous projection of 2023. The Tu-214 is also set to be delivered later in 2025, while the IL-114-300 is now projected to reach the market in 2026, maybe early 2027, which is 2 years later than anticipated. Finally, the Baikal is now expected to be delivered in 2026, which is 2 years later than the previous projection. Now, the total number of the planned deliveries of these civilian aircraft by 2030 has been revised downwards from 1,081 to 940 units. Now, at the Eastern Economic Forum in early September, the Russian Deputy Prime Minister Denis Martynov indicated that plans for the production of civilian aircraft in the Russian Federation could be revised yet again. Now, in an interview with Interfax, the then CEO of the United Aircraft Corporation, Yuri Slazar, revealed that the plans for the production of civilian aircraft in Russia would be revised in the light of changes to the aviation industry model. Meanwhile, the government is still maintaining its forecast for the proportion of Russian-made aircraft in the fleet of Russian airlines, with the anticipated reach of 61.8% by 2030. Now, the situation with the shift in the deadlines and the failure to achieve the programme's forecast indicators within deadlines doesn't make it an emergency. I mean, it's not urgent for Russia to replace all the foreign aircraft is to acknowledge that their existence and production, and to recognise that they are no less consumer focused than their Western counterparts, competitive and reliable, states the aviation expert Roman Gusarov. Now he says that the issue of flight safety within the existing civil aviation fleet will not arise for some time, as the Western aircraft are used by the airlines now are currently relatively new. So we can expect them to be able to fly these aircraft without incidents for at least the next 10 to 15 years. And that allows the Russian industry to adjust and prepare for the future. Now, according to Oleg Panchlev, who's the executive director of the Aviation agency, he thinks that the global aircraft industry had never had a project concerning commercial aircraft and new engine completed ever on time in the past few decades. They've always all been late. And he says that the Russian civilian aircraft industry is working in extremely difficult conditions. The entire civil aviation product line of both United Aircraft Corporation and the Ural Civil Aviation Plant, who are the leading developers of civilian aircraft in Russia, are still currently investing in the manufacturing stage. Now, this experimental design work is underway to create aircraft or import substitute all the systems and components. He adds that the projects are primarily financed by the government budget because it's not feasible to rely on borrowed funds or achieve active private capital given the current interest rates on loans. Now, even the well-established and stable system of industrial cooperation in the West has failed after the pandemic, and that's, you can see with results like the leading global engine manufacturers like Rolls-Royce. They're missing delivery deadlines due to a lack of engines, various units and systems, and that's causing Western airlines like BA serious problems. So what about domestic Russian cooperation? What had to be reassembled from the existing components? Well, many suppliers engaged in the civilian programs are already attempting at the same time to fulfill priority state defence orders. Now, the pandemic and then the subsequent new Cold War have also had an impact on the labour market, with unemployment being at record historical levels, low levels I mean. Salary expectations are growing. There's a high demand for workers from the machine building enterprises, and it's becoming challenging for aircraft manufacturers to recruit qualified engineering personnel. Consequently, there's a deficit of trained professionals, and the training of new personnel is a time-consuming process. Now, that said, Russian aircraft manufacturers have set ambitious targets for the flight and technical characteristics of the products when they're launching. Now, that requires them to rely on new materials and technology, some of which have had to be developed in parallel. Now, a high degree of novelty creates risks, which in turn results in delays in experimental design work. However, without that, it's impossible to create new competitive products. Now, the Russian market is currently constrained by sanctions, making the transition to domestic civilian aircraft the primary avenue for the advancement of the Russian air transport industry. Now, while the Russian market is not the largest in the world, it has the capacity to accommodate at least 500 to 600 mainstream aircraft to replace the foreign brands like Boeing and Airbus, and another 150 to 250 aircraft to expand the fleet from what it currently is. Plus, we believe that the current confrontation with the West will not last indefinitely. Russia's geographical location, aimed at the intersection of the shortest air routes between numerous regions in Asia and Europe, presents an opportunity to leverage its transport services. When Russians begin to actively transport Chinese tourists to Europe and European businessmen to Asia, this will undoubtedly lead to the export of transport services and ongoing flights. So achieving a share of at least 50% of Russian aircraft in the fleet by 2030 would represent a significant achievement. I mean, the current fleet comprises of 1,100 passenger aircraft, with the main part of the fleet mainstream accounting for 620 of those. I mean, Russia requires around 500 MS-21 aircraft by this day. Now, it's not feasible to build such a large number of aircraft in such a short time frame, given the aviation industry doesn't typically commence serial production with 100 aircraft just like it is in the automotive industry. Now, Gusarov, who's an aviation expert, knows that the process is moving forward at a gradual pace, and it will take probably 5 years to complete just this process. Now, analysts unanimously agree, though, that the most significant and accountable project in the domestic aircraft industry is the MS-21, which will be a cutting-edge, high-tech and competitive airliner. And it will be capable of competing not for a position in the Russian fleet, but also in the fleets of airlines in friendly and neutral countries. The MS-21 is a rare, medium-range, narrow-body aircraft developed by the Yakovlev Corporation, which is part of UAC Rostec. Now, in an interview with Interfax, Yuri Sloystar confirmed that the aircraft, which features a fully import substituted systems, will undertake its first flight later this year. Now, the latest official data indicates that the start of serial production of the airliner, which is already with a certified PD-14 engine, is scheduled for 2025 at the Irkutsk Aviation plant. Now, this model is similar to the most commonly used aircraft in the world, which are the Boeing 737 and the Airbus A320, which carry around 80% of all air passengers around the world. And it's anticipated that Russian airlines will take delivery of a significant number of the aircraft, starting as early as late next year, given the production volumes that have already been completed. Now, this is currently the most modern and technology advanced aircraft in its class worldwide, with its own engine. That's a Russian-made engine. Now, he estimates that 15 such aircraft have been assembled to date, and the next could be the expanded MS-21 model line, creating a shortened MS-21-200 and, more importantly, an extended MS-21-400 with an increased flight range. Now, the line of medium-range aircraft will meet the needs of Russian airlines in the most popular and mass market segment. The second most important is the SJ-100 or the SSJ NU, which also has potential but will be in demand in significantly smaller volumes. This is a medium-range narrow-body aircraft for 100 passengers in a new version of the Superjet 100, which is a focus on the maximum import substitution of components. Now, the completion of the SSJ NU certification has been postponed to 2025, and the production of prototypes of the import substituted SSJ NU with the PD-8 engine has been postponed to 2025. Now, this aircraft has already demonstrated its capabilities at a global level. In 2018, it became evident that the collaboration with the Western suppliers had not actually got the desired results. They demonstrated a fully lack of interest in pursuing the avenue. So the Superjet engine and the body is still currently in development, that will appear later, but they just need to wait for the PD-8 engine, and that's earliest possible release date is for 2026. However, there is scepticism noting that the engine testing will take a couple of years, so it might be later than that. And additionally, there's a significant demand for Russian air carriers for regional and local aircraft. So it's anticipated that the Lagoda, the Osvey and the Baikal models, as outlined in the aviation industry development program, will meet the demand. The Baikal is currently considered the front runner in terms of both readiness and prospects, having been designed to replace the AN-2 crop duster and offering seating for up to 9 passengers. Now, the aircraft is being developed by the Baikal Engineering, which is a subsidiary of the Civil Aviation Plant in the Urals. Now, the delivery dates for the Baikal have been subject to multiple adjustments, with the latest official data indicating that it will not be delivered to airlines before 2026. The aircraft design is at a high level of readiness, but the engine is still undergoing bench tests. The aircraft has to be straightforward to operate, frost resistant, repairable and mainly cost effective. Now, that's the challenge, and it's significant, and only the USSR previously was able to address these problems of that type of aircraft following the introduction of the AN-2. There is not an analogue exists anywhere in the world. But they not only need to replicate the AN-2 but surpass it. Now, implementation is expected to occur within the time frame expected by the government over the next 2 to 3 years. Now, in regard to Lagoda, we're waiting for the assembly of the first prototype and its engine. The certification has been postponed until 2027, with the first delivery expected in 2028. Now, you'll see all the pictures of these aircraft on the screen at various points. In the context of cargo aircraft, experts have indicated that modifications to the current passenger airlines for cargo purposes show promise, and the Aviation 76 TD90 will be a military transport as well as a passenger, and it'll take a distinct Anyway, that's how it looks with the far of the aviation industry, and it's certainly on target. Whether they meet the target of 2020, 2030 for all of them, and the serial deliveries remains to be seen, because there's no countries ever managed to bring it all through together. But is it happening? Yes. Is it likely? Yeah, it might be to 2020, 2033, 2034, but the Russian aviation industry has the ability and the technology to deliver exactly what it wants and exactly what is needed. And in Ilyushin, Antonov, etc., will soon be major names that will be causing problems for Boeing and Airbus in the future. Please like and subscribe, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click on the thanks button, and I'll see you all again soon. Thank you.